The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. A's baseball, past, present, and future. One of the hosts is not here. Jerry Feitelberg is cruising. Nancy is here, Nancy Finley.
Hi.
I'm here, Ralph Tyko. And the pinch hitter deluxe is here from the Giant Show, Michae Duca. How are you, Michael? How are you, Nancy?
Great, thank you.
I'm channeling my inner Jerry Lynch.
Or George Crow. Why don't you go back and get? He was the pinch hitter of Cincinnati when I was a kid. Feared guy in the late innings coming up. Here's a good case. It just ran through my head. I was trying to think of somebody who was a great pinch hitter with the A's, and you really can't come up with anybody easily because of the DH. Am I correct on that?
Probably true.
Gosh, I'll never forget when that went through.
That was interesting because it was Charlie's idea, and he voted against it when it came up for a vote.
I just remember hearing how much it was wanted and the champagne popping on January 1st, 73. Of course, I was underage. I couldn't have champagne, but I remember that. It sounded like it was a really big thing to us.
Was it true that they offered Charlie his choice of designated hitter or designated runner? Was that? Were they thinking of?
I remember he tried both.
He did try both with Herb Washington.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. What made? Who came up with the DH idea? Was it him was it Charlie that came up with that idea originally?
I can't say that for a fact, but I remember Charlie talking about it all the time with Dad. He bounced a lot of his ideas off with Dad and other people, but he didn't like to just be the sole person coming up with something. He always asked, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And then it took a while, like the white shoes. I remember that. Charlie was really excited when he had the shoes in a trunk of a rental car, and he ran in to get Dad out of the Elegant Farmer restaurant. If you remember that at Jack London Square.
Jack London Square, yeah.
Yes, and so Dad was waiting to see what surprise Charlie had, and he had these white sneakers, a prototype, in his trunk, and he was upset at the fact that Dad didn't seem as excited as he did, because they had been talking about this. So he had a pair made, and thought that Dad would jump up and down just like he was doing when he saw the shoes. So that's...
Right. Were they spikes or sneakers? They must have been spikes.
I just remember Dad saying they were the whitest shoes he'd ever seen.
Okay.
And this was Oakland, and this is what the players were going to wear. It was a prototype of what they had the players start wearing. I've heard people talking about the white shoes, and that's how it got started. So Charlie was really he went off of a lot of what Dad's feelings were. I heard Dad often say, "I like that idea, but don't put my name on it."
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
the DH was something that Dad and Charlie wanted, and I remember when it went through and hearing all the celebration. And actually, Dad started attending the owners' meetings solo from 75 onward. Charlie stopped because he was in litigation with Kuhn, and the free agency was coming up. He was dealing with his divorce. So he asked Dad. He gave Dad his proxy and just asked Dad to do everything on his own. Before that, Dad attended with him.
Oh.
So
Okay.
yeah. So that I would.
Do you remember, Nancy, back in Kansas City when your dad made headlines with the uniform change, the
oh my
green
God,
and gold colors?
Well, that's all I know is green and gold because I was so young. But I do remember being asked why we had such bright uniforms, and to me it was nice. I loved it, but I couldn't understand why people kept asking and acting like it was some big thing until I saw how the other teams looked at that time and before.
Traditional gray and white.
Yes. So, but I mean, our stadium, I should say, in Kansas City was all different colors. Aqua, fluorescent pink. The uniforms just added to it. So, from my perspective, everything was colored sheep. So it just seemed like it was meant to be. And then we had peacocks up in the petting zoo. So it was something that went with the team color.
Right.
And then we had.
I have a question for Michael.
Yes.
Michael, do you think that the two leagues will ever agree either a DH or no DH, but where baseball will have that, or do you think it'll be both leagues with the DH?
It's a very complex question, Ralph.
Especially the way I asked it.
It's a much more complicated issue than it seems on the surface. My first answer to that is I fervently hope that they don't both go to the DH. I will give away my own personal feeling on this. I have never been a fan of it, and I'm still not a fan of it, despite the fact that as an official score, it makes the game a hell of a lot easier to score. But when I grew up, first of all, when you're a kid and when you're in high school, pitcher's usually your best hitter besides because he's just playing your best athlete. And if it's not your pitcher, it's your shortstop, and your shortstop is probably your pitcher when he's not playing shortstop. But those guys could hit, and there are still pitchers who can hit and who take pride in that hitting. I think the game would be much poorer if we did not know that Clayton Kershaw and Madison Bumgarner going against each other oftentimes feel like the number 9 hitter in the lineup is more of a threat than 8 or 1 surrounding him. But as to whether it will happen, you have to remember the history of why it happened in the first place. It happened in the first place because people believed that attendance was lagging because there was an insufficiency of runs. And that all flowed from the 1968 season when Bob Gibson had his tremendous year and his 1.12 ERA for the season. And after that year, in 1969, we had expansion and we had the mound lowered from 15 inches to 10 inches. And all of that, of course, led to an increase in scoring for a while, but it began to tamp back down, a couple of years later, and people got worried that this was going to become a permanent thing. And so the American League, and it almost passed in the National League. It came very close. I think they were 2 votes shy of passing it in the National League also. But the American League passed it.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. I thought that was just an American League vote. I didn't think the National League.
No. Both leagues voted on it. And do you remember who the first DH was, the first man to take an at-bat as a DH?
I will tell you that. I know it. If you will tell me who the last pitcher was to bat. I'll tell you, it was Blomberg.
Well, I don't know that I can tell you that because pitchers are still batting even in the American League. But
the only time Vita was ever booed was when he got up to bat.
I can tell you that Vita was the last switch hitter to win the Cy Young Award.
Oh, he was awesome in '71. He was a superstar. But then when he'd get up to bat, I would hear some boos, and I asked Dad. He said, "Well, pitchers aren't known to be very good at batting." That's all Dad said.
Larry Galwell was a pitcher with the Yankees, and he was Blomberg's roommate, if I'm not mistaken. He came up for a cup of coffee. I had him as a guest. And other pitchers have batted, of course, since because of interleague play. And some
giving up
pitchers
the DH.
batted.
Yeah.
Yes, DH. So it was Larry Galwell was the last hitter for the Yankees before they went to the DH.
I wondered if pitchers were known for that, just because of my experience. But I figure, hey, if they can win games pitching, that's what matters.
Well, it's true, but let me tell you, Don Drysdale could hit. Juan Marichal could hit. Red Ruffing could hit.
Mm-hmm.
Don Duca could hit. Bob Turley could hit.
Babe Ruth could
Bob
hit.
Lemon, the great pitcher with the Cleveland Indians. I think he's even in the Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Was the starting center fielder for the Indians in like 1949 or 50 when he first came up. And he had a full year as the starting center fielder. So,
is there a name for that?
And here's another piece of trivia for you, my friend. Bob Lemon participated in the one and only year that Home Run Derby was filmed.
Really? Is there a name for a player that can play excellent with every position?
Yeah, Campy Campanera.
Junior Gilliam.
Thank you, yes.
Or Jackie Robinson, how about that?
Cesar Tovar. Chico
Darryl
Ruiz.
Thomas was a giant with Campy played our own, now that I'm a member of your A's family, Nancy.
Yes.
I would say
my favorite. He's my favorite.
All right. I want you to look in your records and see if you can't find the name of Dr. Pearson, who was the spring training doctor.
Yes, I found that.
You found his name?
I found his name, and I remember putting asterisk next to it.
Wow, that's very cool. If you could send me a copy of whatever picture, whatever document you found his name on. Okay. You've been sending me all these records and stuff. I have a wonderful collection, Nancy. Thank you.
You're welcome. I like to back up what I said.
Dr. P was my boyhood hero at summer camp. He was a year, maybe 2 or 3 years older than me. He passed away a few years ago. And lifetime friend, lived in Mesa, was the Cubs and the A's spring training doctor. And, I wish he were alive today for a number of reasons, but not the least of which to tell stories about players he treated. I'm going to divert. One comes to mind was Carl Hubble, who lived in Arizona the last years of his life in a small little apartment. Baseball had the gall to take care of him not. And all the other stars, the Mickey Cochrans, all these people that were basically didn't make much money when they played, didn't save much money, and there was no pension in those days. And Dr. P treated Carl Hubble with no expense, no charge. He didn't have any money. He literally had no money. And this is a guy that worked for the Giants for a lot of years as in scouting and player development and all. And it wasn't just Hubble and it wasn't just the Giants not taking care of players. It was the entire organization of baseball.
So there should be a fund for that, for people who were under that. I know the situation.
How's your time, sir? Are you okay?
I have about 5 more minutes.
Oh, I wanted to ask Michael one thing about. You asked me a question about Sam Clark for office furniture place, and I started thinking about it, and I thought we didn't get, at least since that I know of, we didn't get any office furniture after coming to Oakland because we had more than enough there. So I don't remember any that we would have shopped for office furniture, because I started thinking, no, that's certainly not. We had too much.
The legend was that your dad's desk had come from Sam Clark, and that when the Haas family purchased the team, that they had come in to request the printout of the season ticket holders so that they could contact all of them.
Oh, see, Dad was there. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, I was there. Dad was there at that time. Dad stayed for another 3 years.
Right, and allegedly your dad opened the top drawer of a desk from Sam Clark. This is the way I was told the story. Opened the top drawer on the right-hand side of the desk and pulled out a recipe box full of 3x5 cards and handed it to Roy Eisenhart, which was an astonishment. Hey, this is it. And my understanding was that there were about 100 season ticket holders at the time.
Well, see, the thing is, we had our ticket manager, who was one of the best, Lorraine Paulus. Dad actually got her to come to work for the A's from the Hockey Seals. And Dad had to do a lot of convincing. Charlie flew in to help convince Lorraine. They did it at Francesco's restaurant. And so Lorraine was there through, I believe, the 81 or 82 year. So Lorraine would have been in charge of getting all of that together. She was wonderful. I talked to her a few years ago. She still lives in this area. So that's Dad didn't keep everything on those cards. Dad might have been maybe joking, or maybe just wanting to see the look on Eisenhart's face. I'm thinking because, if that desk was from Sam Clark, it must have been there when they moved here. But interesting, because I remember the Haas family Dad found them through his friend Cornell Meyer, head of the Kaiser Industries. And Dad's the one who tried to see if he could find a local buyer. So Cornell introduced Dad to Roy and Wally Jr. So saw them for a few months socially. They were just trying to work stuff out. And so they in and out of the office. I remember when Dad had managed to have all the 3 trophies brought in and put on a desk, but that's not where we normally kept them. So it was.
Who has those trophies now?
No, they stayed with.
Do the A's still have them?
Yes. Those were purchased.
Do they display them?
They look like they do. Yes, actually, they're at Jack London Square now.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. Before that, we bought those specifically for the Coliseum, to show off. And then, but yeah, Dad actually, in the winter of 81, Dad was asked to be a VP and like a mentor. Dad is the one who continued negotiating the intellectual property because Charlie was out at the end of 80 and then just left all that up to Dad. Sort of like in divorce, you can bifurcate and then deal with all the stuff later. that's what Dad called it, because Dad knew all these legal terms. So I always thought the word bifurcate sounded interesting. It sounds sort of bad, but
well, do you get to use that word when you are doing your legal secretary work?
I like to use it. I like to throw it around, but no, I don't get to use it much because Morgan doesn't do fancy law. but Morgan said that that's similar to what Dad did, where the team was sold, but then Dad is who went through all, like, do you want to keep our mascot image? Do you want to keep the colors? All that kind of thing. And our mascot died at the end of '76, so it wasn't like we were handing over this live animal. They could. And we had the elephant for the first 4 years. I realized that when I was looking at some old stationery. So interesting, though, Michael, you mentioned that, because when we bought the team from Johnson, Dad was going through a filing cabinet and found something from Philadelphia that had not been opened. And it was from Connie Mack's secretary asking if they could look for his pink slip to his Cadillac.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
At least it wasn't a check.
That was, I have that, and I'm thinking, they never open this? So anyway, that sort of reminded me. But yes, I would, interesting, I didn't know Roy Eisenhart thought that was it. Oh my gosh. No, and Lorraine, I'm sure he talked to Lorraine after that.
All right. Let me ask you, Michael, has anything come up on the new stadium in Oakland?
I'm not aware of anything, but that's probably a good thing because public negotiations over this are usually a bad sign.
Yes. Oh.
Right.
Then, yeah. Yes. I'm surprised Oakland hasn't had a parade that the A's announced they would stay here.
Okay, I have another question for Michael because you've been going a while. Let me ask you, if when you score, do you score in a traditional way in a scorebook, or do you enter the information into the computer as you're scoring?
Well, it depends on what job I'm doing. If you're talking about official scoring,
yes,
I have a unique form that I, along with a couple of other people, designed and copyrighted with the Baseball Workshop back in the 1980s. And as things happen, the Baseball Workshop got acquired by the same folks who published Baseball America, and then it got acquired by something called Quacka.com, and then that got acquired by something called Major League Baseball.
That's fabulous, really. That's your intellectual property.
It is.
Okay. Yes.
It is, and they're using it and distributing it to people who are doing MLB.com all over the country, and
Great.
I just smile when I see it because I do hold the copyright on that, and yes. I could certainly enforce it because they've never even acknowledged it.
That's great that you did that, though. You did all the programming.
No. This is a well, yes, I did. This was a form that was designed in. Actually, it was in Ventura PageMaker before Adobe even existed. But it basically allows me to keep track of the game pitch by pitch in an account form. I have 3 boxes for each at bat. One is for base running during the at bat. One is for the result of putting the ball in play or not. And the third is base running because the ball was put in play. Mm-hmm. And so it allows you actually to go back. I've got one in front of me, and I can recreate for you an entire inning of a Tampa Bay Rays game from this year that I scored.
Is it possible to do that in the traditional, say, 5-3 ground ball, third baseman, right?
It is.
But
and
what if
fact,
the third baseman is playing right field? Does it account for, like, if I go back to that game that you're talking about, and somebody hits a ground ball into right field, the third baseman throws it to first, he's out. Will I be able to tell that it isn't a traditional 5-3 play from your...
That's an interesting question, Ralph. If you were watching MLB's game day at the time, yes, you would be able to see that, because in addition to entering the code that describes the play, which becomes the permanent record, they also locate where the ball was fielded on a diagram of the field.
Wow. I would be interested to see that.
Okay, but if you're not...
Wow.
But if you go back afterwards and just look at the online record will only show you pitch sequence and a description of what actually happened on the play. So it'll just show up as a 5-3 ground out.
Okay. Well, we had Ken Korak. You guys were gone last week. I had Ken Korak on, and we talked about what a nightmare the shifting is for the flow of play for an announcer. And I know it is. Thing?
Okay, because that's been around, right?
The shifting.
Well, the first shifts were employed against Ted Williams, so it's been around for a while. But the consistency with which overshifts are played now is unprecedented, and it does change the way I look at a game as a scorer, if that's what you're asking, Ralph. The first thing that I do when I sit down to the first inning of a game, both top and bottom of the inning, is I try to find something identifying at a glance about infielders. Obviously, I keep an eye on them, and I watch when the third baseman swings over and decides to play. Some teams just shift by moving everybody to one side or another, and others actually have people change positions. The shortstop stays where he is, but the third baseman goes over and plays behind the second base bag. He's still the third baseman. He still goes down in the scorebook as the third baseman. But it leads to the almost unheard of in baseball history things like the 4-5-3 double play,
right.
or the 2-5 caught stealing at second base. But what I look for is, does the shortstop wear his socks high? Does the second baseman have a dark-colored glove or a light-colored glove? I look for something that allows me to identify it quickly so I can tell who the cutoff men are, because that's always an issue when a play is going on. And also so you can tell what's going on in a rundown, which, a lot of people don't realize it, but the announcer announces a rundown as, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4. But the shortstop, even though he handled the ball twice, for an official scorer, he only handled it once. You only get one assist on a play.
Oh, wow. Incredible amount of complication. You have to have intense concentration over the period of time. I admire you for that.
He's like, it's like how I would look at Charlie's face during the championships, and I don't know how he was able to concentrate like he was and not, I couldn't stand it. But he just looked, stared, and he could tell what was going on. And listening to Michael, I am hearing the same concentration.
Yeah,
it's necessary, and it's not always equal, because you often have sports writers coming up and saying, catch me up, or you'll have a PR person come over and say, are you sure about that? You want to look at that play again?
They weren't allowed it during that time, to come up during the games.
Michael, there's one more element. Generally, from having seen thousands of games in your lifetime, you can tell what's a hit and what's an error. But if the third baseman is playing short right field and there's an unusual play out there, it makes it difficult to determine, because you have nothing to compare it to, what might be a hit and an error. You follow that? That question?
Well, I'm going to give you two quick answers to that, and then I'm going to bail off the call. The first one is the great, and I do mean great, Leonard Coppett sat behind me in the press box in San Francisco for 5 years, and I learned a tremendous amount about scoring from Leonard, who is that rare writer who is in 2 halls of fame, baseball and basketball.
Yes.
And Leonard's advice was really very simple. He said, you've seen the game played before. Trust your instinct. It's going to be right 99% of the time. And the second thing is that we aren't given a lot of guidance, but we're given just enough. And what we are told is a play has to be capable of being made with ordinary effort by an average fielder at that position. So if you're taking somebody and, your immediate thought is, I'm taking a third baseman and I'm putting them out of position in short right field. And my answer to that is, well, that's what the manager did, therefore he thinks he can play there.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to be able to make the plays. Now, where it gets interesting is on those ground balls deep into the shift. You've got a ball coming grass and then dirt and then grass again, and the outfield grass is different than the infield grass. It's usually taller and has a little bit more. If you watch a ball that's hit with topspin, you'll see how it kind of snakes out there. Each bounce, it changes direction and goes back and forth. And so you've got that to contend with as an infielder that you're not used to. And it's a longer throw. And you're used to getting set up in dirt, and you have to get set up on grass. And so there's a variety of things that you do look at and you do pay attention to. But oftentimes you resolve that very simply with the second piece of advice that we're given, which is when you're not sure, you give the benefit of the doubt to the hitter.
Okay. That's a good way of looking at it.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to interject. There should be a street or statue or something of Vita Blue here. I mean street like Oakland Airport or somewhere near the Coliseum. And this goes with our other championship players, but I'm just surprised that after all this time there isn't anything.
Well, let's start a campaign, Nancy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have.
We'll kick it off. You get Vita to come and be on the show, and we'll make the plans. You can tell us.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. And then one more thing. Think about this, Michael, too. Were we the only team with a live mascot ever in history? No one's been able to tell me that. So maybe that's
well, it depends on how you define mascot.
Major League Baseball.
The Giants, when they were in New York, had a little person who they treated as their mascot at games.
Animal. Okay.
I didn't know that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let's look into that.
Yes. Okay.
Michael, you're pressed for time. You've got to go. I'm going to ask you both one question, and then we'll end the show. Is baseball a microcosm of life, or is life a microcosm of baseball?
Oh, my. Oh, that's deep.
Okay.
Baseball is a microcosm of life, fairly simply because life predated it. That's
good point. Well, we don't really know. Do you know that for sure, Michael? I don't want to question your belief systems, but do you know that for sure? Did you ever get that on the subway?
Well, I can tell you this much, Ralph. I can tell you this much to a certainty. There is no place in the National Gallery of Art where the Founding Fathers are shown playing baseball.
That's true.
No, I know Custer's men played it in the 7th Cavalry when they were in Montana. I know that because they would on their breaks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A little war going on.
I don't know if it
Time
was
out. Time out.
Okay.
Time to play 9.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, as usual. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The show is A's Baseball, Past, Present, Future. Michae Duca, the pinch hitter, and for Jerry, the touring, the cruising Jerry Feitelberg will be back in a week or so.
I stood in
Nancy
for
Finley, daughter of Carl and niece of Charlie. Is that a good way?
That's
pretty close, right?
Yep. You've seen all the articles with the relationship. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. And quickly, if you're listening and enjoy any of our offerings, please box up some lightly used children's books. Take them to the Head Start program wherever you live. Help society. Get kids reading. Get them to have a passion. Get their noses out of the devices and the games for a while, and help make them school ready and be healthy and have a nice week. How about that? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Adios, everybody. See you next week.